Alright guys, on to the HF side of this particular chassis. So as I said, I have no immediate intention of dismantling this whole dial cord mechanism here for the tuning condenser. I've cleaned it all up as well as I can without dismantling. One little lesson I learned for next time, if there is a next time for one of these. There's a single lug here on this black drum is the drum for the wire cable that does the cursor, and basically both ends of the wire go around this lug. So one end goes around here, it goes around the back channel of the drum, goes off around these two pulleys, this one, and then up onto the two pulleys on the actual glass dial mechanism itself, back around, and then it wraps around the front groove of the pulley, and the other end of it pops on the same lug here. So I was very careful to note where the cursor was when this guy is pointing straight up, so I could put it back the same way. What I didn't look at is where were the vanes in the tuning condenser. And it becomes important now, because as you go from one extreme to the other, guess what, this little guy pops around twice. So I have a feeling I'll be guessing which way to put it, and then have a 50-50 chance of it being right or having to do it all over again. Anyway, I think it's cleaned up pretty well. Getting in underneath it all was a bit weird. The tuning vanes look to be either brass or some sort of coated material. They're not the regular sort of aluminium. And they don't seem to be rust on them or anything, so I give them a good wash and a clean and blow out, and then re-lubed, and put some deoxys on the earthing contacts, etc. So yeah, so I think mechanically that's as far as we're going to go at this point. And then the rest, of course, is replacing all those rubber wires. Okay, so initially I thought this was going to be probably maybe a little bit easier than the other one, than the AF section, because it's smaller. And certainly on the upper section here above the wave selector, wafer switch assembly, that's certainly the case. However, we get to the other extreme down here, where it is a total rat's nest all around here. And so, for instance, right down at the bottom there's a big cap that needs to get replaced. And I can't really see any way of doing that meaningfully without removing the upper three layers of components. So I think it's time to, plus, I mean, I have obviously taken loads and loads of reference photos, but cameras don't show everything. And so yeah, I think I'm going to have to get the old pencil and paper out and do some drawings, because I think this lot here is going to be coming apart. Not only so I can do the cap around the back, but so I can work on this whole area here with some chance of doing it without causing harm. So get stuck into that. Well, we're either making progress here, or we're down a very deep hole. Time will tell. See how good my drawing was. So before I go rebuilding these two tag strips here, then there's a couple of rubber wires down here down in the bottom that I'm going to try and get those out of the way first. And then we should be good. This over here is a concern. There's just such a density of wires. Might have a look at that as well before I go rebuilding these, because once these are rebuilt, I got no room to move anymore. Guys, I'd be very interested to know if you know what this is. There is a metal plate here which extends down almost to the chassis here, comes up around, and it goes back down the other side. And I kind of assumed this was a screen, but it doesn't go to deck. So it's clearly a metal plate in here with paper each side, by way of insulation, I assume. But I haven't come across one of these before, and there's also one on the other ECH21 in the AF section. So I'm assuming it's some form of isolation between the different parts of the tube. But new one on me, this. If you guys know what it is, yeah, let me know in the comments. Help me get educated here. Right, I hope that's the bottom half of this section done. This has taken me pretty much most of the day to do this. I would say I started on this, well, maybe just after lunch. And it's now coming up on 8:30 p.m. So yeah, straining on the brain. But it looks like I got it all back together. I had a place for every resistor and wire and cable to go. And I also got this corner done here, which was a lot of wires. All of them but one are done, which is way down in the bottom here. But I'll follow it through to the other end, and I'll do it when I'm doing these two transformers up here. Okay guys, I'd say this is the first serious setback so far. I just started to replace the coating on the wires going to this transformer, and the moment I melted the solder on this post, it wobbled from side to side, which I thought, okay, something's loose. And on here is connected this wire, this black wire, which I've recovered, and the capacitor. And the minute I pulled on the capacitor to remove it from the lug broke off or fell off. I'd say it was probably held on by the lump of solder anyway. Probably not. So either I completely strip this off and take this out to verify that what's on the other side of this is connected, or I hope it's connected on the other end, and I just, I don't know, use the leg of the capacitor as the post, and then solder this wire onto the leg of the capacitor. Yep. I think I'll try the latter plan first, see how that goes. Take it from there. Okay, well that's that little corner done. At least I hope so anyway. It's kind of strange because some of these wires that just go from like this wafer switch over to the transformer seem way too long. But I've tried to route these wires exactly the same as they were, and like position this coil, because there's just a couple of turns on it, but there's a huge long former, and conscious that this is the RF end of things, I'm trying to, as I say, all the cables are just recovered, so they're exactly the same length that they were before, and as I say, they're as near as possible routed the same as before. So hopefully we're in with a shot. And yeah, this capacitor here is just the other leg of it. I don't think there's any way I can show it to you. Yeah, there you go. So the leg of it is glued onto the pad that was left, and then the wire is soldered on to the leg of the cap. So we shall just have to hope that this gets us by. And that just leaves this corner over here, which I gotta do. Okay, I think that's the wiring and the caps done on the HF section. So next, I guess, is what's the strategy for putting this thing back together. So I think one thing is for sure, this set will be, if I can get it going, it'll be going without its dial pointer for quite a while. Because that would be the absolute last thing I'll do. So I'll mount the main sub-assemblies here onto the subframe. See if I can wire them up properly, get all these connections to the other piece done correctly. And yeah, then start test the mains transformer out first. I have a new old stock rectifier on the way, as well as a NOS I-tube. That's cool. Yeah, and I think all that'll be working minus a dial for quite a while. And then right at the end, I'll have that joy of trying to somehow do all this dial cord while the thing is just laid on top and then slide it in. Oh well. Okay, no more major complications, I think. Not sure how critical the layout of the runs of the wiring is, but I've kept everything pretty much as it is, or as it was. So for instance, this variable cap here, the center lug of all of them is that chassis. And so, but this one, if you follow the wire, it's way over here that it actually solders to the chassis. Whereas there are points where you can get to the chassis much closer than going all the way over here. Likewise, this one, again, center one, is at deck, but it's all the way over here, up in this corner in here, that it goes to deck, when there's one right just here beside it. So I'm not taking any chances. I'm leaving it the way it is, and all the wires are the same length, and as far as I can I'm routing them the way they were. And yeah, one interesting thing I discovered yesterday is these, when I was doing this section, is these two resistors here. They're just straight up in parallel. And when you look at the resistor, it calls it 39,000 ohms /2. So I guess they needed 1800 ohms at higher wattage, and they just did it like this with these two guys straight up parallel. Interesting stuff. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here and maybe post this up. And then I'll start thinking about how I'm going to put all this together and hook it up and test while I'm waiting for my rectifier valve to arrive.